Hello, princesses, and welcome back to Not Fit for Print Beauty with me, Rebecca. Well, I have taken out my major Patrick Ta sweatshirt because it is time for a Patrick Ta video. You know what it is. But today we're going to talk about the brand new Patrick Ta Major Dimension 3 eyeshadow palette. It is $70 and it is his, well, as the name implies, third eyeshadow palette. We're going to talk about it, do some comparisons, and a demo. I am already wearing it now. All right, so this is, as I said, his third eyeshadow palette, and it has, as the other two eyeshadow palettes did, a little flap here. Now, you guys who have been with my channel a while, it's been a while since I've gotten to talk about this. I like to call this the Ta flap, named after Patrick Ta. I know that other makeup artists use it. Natasha Denona has a flap in hers too often. Denona flap just doesn't sound good enough. So we call it the Ta flap. And everybody who knows this channel knows I'm waiting for Patrick Ta to use the term on his own. Then I'll know my work is done. But until then, I will continue to push it into the popular lexicon and see if I can get it to stick. So underneath the Ta flap here, we have two cream base shades, and then we have 10 matte blendable creamy shades. So we have a cream and their pressed powder in warm and cool tones. Let me hold that up for you a bit better. These can be worn alone or layered, blended. They could go over the bases. Heck, you could use the bases over them. I'm going to show you a little bit about that in, the lights went off, in the demo today while we work on that. So you'll see it. It is $70, and again, his third. We're going to do some comparisons and swatches, but first I do have to pull out my soapbox for a moment and talk a little bit about something that I think affects the industry a bit. I have heard many people say, and I'm not quoting one person in particular and certainly not picking on anyone because I understand perspectives that everyone has, but people will say, can't Patrick Ta or Danessa Myricks is coming out with a matte palette as well. Can't they see that others in the industry have already done a matte palette shade? Mario, Viseart, Charlotte. Why do they need to do one too? They already exist. That's a tough call because it's kind of like saying, why does Burger King have to make a chicken sandwich when McDonald's and Popeyes already have a chicken sandwich? Burger King should let McDonald's and Popeyes have all the chicken sandwich customers. They're already out there. Why reinvent the wheel? You can see how silly it sounds when I talk about fast food restaurants, and it's the same in the makeup industry. Yes, they already exist out there. There's a lot of competition for shimmery shades too, and certainly red lipsticks. But for some weird reason, it becomes more apparent with matte eyeshadow. We go, we already seen matte eyeshadow. You don't have to do one. Someone did it already. I get it. And as a consumer, I can understand that type of thinking. But you have to understand a few things. Everybody wants their own version, number one. Number two, everyone thinks they could do it better. And we're going to talk about whether Patrick Ta did it better here. And certainly Danessa Myricks will have her own take on hers that comes out in a few days, depending upon when you're seeing this video. Also, there are a lot of makeup artists that work with specific brands. And there's nothing worse for a makeup artist than to go on, backstage at a runway show or something and see that your makeup artists have to pull out a palette or a product from another brand because to compensate for kind of holes in your makeup brand. So, that's another thing too. This is a business, and it's used a lot. So the question then becomes for you as the consumer, if you have one already, is this better or why would you need this? And for the consumer, it's an entirely different question than for the brand. I'm going to put my soapbox back away underneath the bed, only to be brought out again at a later time. So let's look at some swatches and we'll talk about some differences. And after the demo, I'll talk about my favorite as well, okay? All right, so first of all, we have, as I said, two cream shades under the Ta flap and then are 10 matte shades. So what we're going to do first is we're going to look at this in two different lightings. First in studio lighting, I have laid this out in the exact same way that you will see them in the palette when you open the palette, but I have put the two cream shades a little bit more separate from the powder shades, so you can take a look at that there. Really pretty, super creamy, swatched like a dream. Really quite lovely. But you know, the way to see these the best, as you guys know from my channel, is to take these shades outside into the warm California sunshine. Take a look at them here on my arm in the same order. Those cream shadows separated a bit from the powder. It's just really pretty. Beautiful, beautiful shadows. And I really like how they apply. I don't mind telling you. Now, we can't help but think about the very first Major Dimension eyeshadow palette, which had, I'm going to hold it up here, it's got a tall flap too. It looks like I got a shade, ooh, that just wants to come out, so I better be careful there. So we had 5. A lot of these were matte shades, and we still had the tall flap with 2 base cream shades also. Let me hold these up one next to each other. They are the obvious 2 comparisons. Of course, the Major Dimension 1 had some shimmer shades. Whoop, it flew out. Look at that. Oh, it was a different one that flew out. Okay, so I'm going to be very careful with this guy. He needs some Gorilla Glue. So here we go. Here is the very first one that's getting a little worse for wear, and here is our brand new. Now, what I have done is I have swatched this for you, but what I did was on the top row is the entire, all of this palette, all 12 shades, but I put the 2 cream shades first, and then beneath it you'll see I'm going to put the 2 cream shades first from the Major Dimension 1 palette. So it goes cream, and then all the mattes, and then down below is cream, and all of the mattes from the Major Dimension 1 palette. Look, let me make sure that's up there, that stays up on screen. Those matte shades in those kind of brown tones are very similar in shade, but I do find the brand new palette to be much creamier. I don't know, as you see from the palette kind of falling apart here, the first one, it doesn't look like it's held up very well, poor little thing. And the shades are very powdery and pretty, but I think these are much creamier and easier to work with. So if you like his first palette and you like those shades, you're going to get similar shades, there's no doubt, but I do enjoy the creaminess and the kind of new way that these shades in this new palette apply and look. They're really nice. You know, also we have Mario, I mentioned. This is the Makeup by Mario palette, which is it's a good little palette. I never reach for it. I don't think of it, but it's a good little palette. The Patrick Ta's better. And we have Charlotte Tilbury's Super Nudes. Never liked this. Hard panned on me. Never liked it. When it worked, it didn't last. The shades didn't last on the eyes, and I think it hard panned. A lot of people love this. It's not my favorite, and I love Charlotte Tilbury, but I'm not a big fan of that one. And of course, Viseart, which I think is the real true competition for this Patrick Ta palette. Viseart has quite a few different kind of nudes and matte. They have mattes and colors and mattes, and they have everything in there. And the question becomes which one of these is better, and we'll talk about that after the demo. Right now I want to go to me trying this on, then I will definitely, absolutely give you my opinion on whether or not you need to spend $70 on this little guy, so stay right there. Okay, lately we've had quite a few kind of wilder eyeshadow palettes, namely Too Faced and Tarte, but so I've been doing 2 different eye looks. I feel, and I hope you'll agree, that with a matte palette, we just want to see how these shadows perform. We kind of all know what a matte palette can do. And so many of you are going to choose to mix this with, you know, a more glittery shade or a, you know, more reflective kind of celestial shade. So we just really want to know what these are about. So I'm just going to do the same look on both eyes. And yes, I will start with a base. And for that base, I don't think you can blame me. I am going to choose this shade right here. Now I'm going in with this undyed goat's hair brush from Rephr, which is a number 15, and that can be used with the goat's hair brush. And I'm just kind of putting it all over the lid. I'm really gentle with it. I'm not going into the inner corner. I'm going to do a little bit darker here on the outer portion of the eye, but I'm just kind of putting it onto the eye, and I could wear it like that, but we are going to build it with shadows. And the other cream shade underneath the top flap is there for the same reason, and we saw that in the swatches. And you know, I'm really happy with how that applied. Super easy to use, very pretty, and it's going to help the shadow we put over it last a little bit longer. Interesting in that it's a matte, darker base. I tend to habitually start with a lighter base, but we're going to kind of reverse that. Okay. Now, can you use, keeping with the same 15, it doesn't matter, I'm going to go in right here. Do these have names? It looks like they do. And if they do, of any consequence, I'll put that onto the screen. Can you put the cream over the powder? Well, generally, as of course we know Patrick Ta does with his blushes, you can do that. You can build these in any way you want, really. I think generally this time the cream would go underneath it, but there are no rules. It's just makeup. If you don't like it, just go ahead and wash it off. And we're just building that up there in the middle. Really pretty, quite sultry and nice. And then I'm going to go onto the outer. I'm still with the same brush because there's no need to make any brush laundry here. On that outer shade there, I'm just going to darken in the outer corner of the eye. And in a moment, I'm going to go back underneath with it. This is a really kind of dark, smoky look, but I like it. Again, there are no rules that you can go in and put some sparkle in from maybe a single sparkle shadow that you have, or whatever palette that you like, even mixing and matching with Patrick Ta's other palettes, especially the first one. Okay, and then I want to take a Rephr, in this case a Rephr number 2, and I'm going to just go under the eye with that. Now, in the absence of a kind of sparkly or celestial shade, I'm going to actually use color to replicate that. So I'm going to go into the lightest shade here and just go right into the inner corner of the eye and just bring a lightness and a brightness there. It does not need sparkle for that. And I'm going to even run it onto the eye. And we saw this, we looked at quite a few weeks ago, if you guys recall. We looked at a redone Makeup Forever highlighter that was kind of like this, really. And it was just to bring up those parts of your eye that you want to come out to people there that way. And we can do that even with this slightly lighter shade or slightly darker shade, even into the center of the eye. So that those lighter colors can work in much the same way that a highlighty or sparkly shade can work. People just like the sparkly shade because, well, that's sparkly and pretty, but you can achieve that same type of look with a light shade as well. Now I'm going to go in here and just, at the risk of being a little bit 90s looking, but to me matte shadows are already 90s looking, I'm just taking this clean brush, this is a Rephr number 1, and I am just blending that out, just so it doesn't have any harsh lines. Like I said, that does make it a little bit 90s, but I don't mind that. And I gotta tell you guys, I'm really not missing the sparkle. I really think that's a really pretty eye look, and normally I would feel the need to take my kind of matte, nude, brown shadows, look at my face, and put something with it to spice it up. This is the first time I have felt like I don't need to. That's really interesting. In terms of some of the, we compared it with his other shadows, and therefore if you buy his first palette, you would get the sparkle shades with it. It's true. I feel the Charlotte shades are, I think they hard pan. I've never liked this Charlotte palette. Others disagree with me. And I think this beats the Mario palette, I really do. In terms of Viseart versus Patrick Ta, I think the Viseart shadows are just much more powdery and buildable, and these just feel a lot more creamy and buildable. Doesn't make one better or worse, it's just preference. But I have to tell you, of all the matte palettes I've ever had, and I've had a lot, I think this one is my favorite. It was really pleasant to use, and I really like the look. I think it's really kind of, for as 90s retro as it is, I think it's really kind of contemporary and fun. So I'm really pleased with it, actually. And I know that the lovely Danessa Myricks is coming out with another super interesting matte kind of nudes and browns shadows as well, so we'll have to compare those. But for now, we will let Patrick Ta stand alone as really quite pretty, useful, contemporary shade. So I like it a lot. Let me know what you think. Are you waiting for the Danessa palette to compare? Are you happy with your Viseart? Or how do you feel about this? Do you feel you'd have to mix it? Do you feel you can get the look you want just using these shades? There's a lot of questions out there, but that's what makes us a community. So go ahead and answer below. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I sure hope that you did. Hey, if you haven't already done so, make sure that you subscribe to this channel so we can continue to grow. I know that YouTube tends to recommend creators that you've already watched, but if you actually hit subscribe, it's greatly helpful to me and I appreciate it. Also, come on over and say a big hello on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. And don't forget, you can become a bigger member of this YouTube community by becoming an actual channel member. Yeah, it's $4.99 a month, but it's just behind the scenes stuff, and we have weekly insider members only lives where we just get real gossipy and talk about the industry and, you know, stir things up a little bit. We'd love to have you. But any way that you are here, please know that I am thrilled to see you, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Bye-bye.